if you're a libertarian and you're not into Bitcoin, you're wasting your time, because this is it. This is the shot. This is the best shot. I would say it's the only shot that we have at this. A peaceful global revolution.
Hello there from Bedford, UK. How the hell are you all? Pretty crazy times right now in the world. I hope you're all well. Anyway, welcome to the What Bitcoin Did podcast, which is brought to you by the Mighty Kraken, the best place to buy, sell and trade Bitcoin. I'm your host, Peter McCormack, and today I've got an interview with Knut Svanholm. But before that, I have a message from my amazing sponsors. So first up, my newest sponsor, Casa, the best in Bitcoin and security. Okay, let's talk about this. Are you taking your Bitcoin security seriously, or have you let it slip? Do you just have a hardware wallet hidden somewhere with your private keys backed up on a piece of paper, hidden in your house, under the mattress? Well, that was pretty much me until recently, totally unprepared for certain scenarios. So I've been working with Casa to ensure that I'm protected from single failures of a hardware wallet, my own dumb mistakes, someone trying to hack me, or any kind of personal threat. I signed up for the Casa 305 multi-sig. I've now distributed my keys, and honestly, now it's done. It's come with so much peace of mind. I have now reduced my attack services and my risk of doing stupid things. Now, as I said, I signed up for Casa's Platinum. That is $150 a month. But if you do want to try it out, if you're thinking, shit, I need to get my security sorted, they do have a gold option. They do have this $10 option, which will give you a more robust security protection for your Bitcoin. With a single hardware wallet, you get triple the security protecting your Bitcoin. So it really is a no-brainer. And they have a 1-month free trial. Just head over to trial.keys.casa. And if you want to try out Platinum or Diamond, then just head over to keys.casa, which is keys.casa. Also, today we have Sportsbet. Have you checked out sportsbet.io yet? They are the best place for online gaming, and you know, they accept Bitcoin. And also, you enjoy the football being back? I am. I'm so glad it's back, and I can't wait for the Champions League matches and the Euros next year. And there is no better place to have a wager on the football than with sportsbet.io. And of course, they have promotions galore to make it a little bit more exciting. And they've got one for new customers. To get you started, they've prepared a generous offer. If you win 4 bets in a row across 4 separate matches during 1 week after your first deposit at sportsbet.io, they will give you 10 MBTC free bet on top of it. If you want to find out more, head over to sportsbet.io/promotions, and sportsbet.io is sportsbet.io. Okay, so onto the show today, and I have Knut Svanholm, the author of Bitcoin, Sovereignty Through Mathematics, and Bitcoin Independence Reimagined. Now, he is a staunch libertarian, and we've been talking about the show for quite some time. And as anyone who regularly listens to the show, they know this is something that I've been wrestling with since I discovered Bitcoin. Some people are like, why don't you just get it yet, Pete? And you know what? I don't just go full head on into things. I kind of have to investigate them. I have to try and rationalize it and understand these things myself. And I love all the ideals that the libertarians hold, and I definitely want people to have more freedoms. I fundamentally believe in free markets, and I fundamentally believe that free markets are more efficient, and I agree that nation states and governments are overreaching and way too powerful. However, I do struggle with, can it actually happen? And the reality of it when it does, and are humans by nature set to always build these structures? So rather than having the big red button to switch off the state, I found myself in this position where I'm directionally in favour of libertarianism, and the idea of weaning ourselves off the state, if we can even do that. That's where I've kind of found myself. Now, I don't know how you account for all the evil people, or the people who are willing to do shit things and exploit the vulnerable for personal gain, or how society works out without regulation. And I'm not saying I think the system we have now works. It doesn't. But these are just some of the things that I'm still unsure of. So I'm going to continue with my wrestling with this. And it's great to have people like Knut on who can help me out, or help me kind of navigate some of the questions I have. So I put some questions to Knut. We talk about collectivism versus individualism, and if it's actually really helpful. He did a great job of breaking it down and explaining how he thinks a libertarian society would operate. So I hope you enjoy this one. If you have any questions or feedback on the show, do get in touch. I am available at hello@whatbitcoindid.com. And just a note, there was a sound issue with this Knut episode. I moved over to using Squadcast, and it didn't pick up my microphone, so I apologise this week. We don't have the best sound from my side, but it's definitely worth listening to. Also, I've got a great show coming out in Defiance soon. Doing an audio documentary about the band The Ghost Inside. You want to check out what happened to them 4 years ago. I'll let you know when that's out. Anyway, if you've got any questions, as I said, you can reach out to me. It is hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Hello, Knut. How are you, man?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. We've been trying to do this for quite a while, right? On and off.
Yeah. We've been, and then forgot about it, and then tried again.
Yeah, and it's my fault. I haven't even read your book yet, and I feel terrible. But I wanted to read it before doing it. But at the same time, like the ideas you pitched to me are also things I want to talk about. Let me tell you something, because you've listened to a few of my shows, right?
Yeah, I have. I've listened to them for quite a while now. Not all of them, of course, but some of them. And I saw your the Defiance thing there, the Venezuela thing. I really like those.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm obviously on this ongoing journey where I'm learning in public, as I think it was Angela Walsh who said that. I'm happy to put it out there, talk about the journey I'm going through, the things I've got, the things I don't get. But let me tell you where I am at the moment, because, again, if this is really bore some people, because I've talked about this before, but I didn't know anything about libertarianism before Bitcoin. It's something I'd heard of, but never taken a look at it. I was very much I had a Stockholm syndrome for politics, right? My belief was there's a state and you contribute to the state, you pay your tax, and you get to vote every 4 years. I never, ever thought of this alternative scenario where people talk about, which is liberty, where you have complete individualism, you have all interactions are voluntary, you don't have any stupid speech laws, and obviously, as an ideology or whatever you want to call it, it's very hard to argue against it, because you're offering people total freedom versus a secondary choice of having your freedom limited by the state. So I get it. I'm like, this makes total sense. But I've always struggled with the kind of, does it work in practice? And secondary, how do you even get there? I've been in this idea of directionally heading towards liberty rather than this kind of big red button that you can switch it off. And right now, I tell you where I am right now. So I'm studying. I'm at the very early stages. I bought a paper, the Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. So I bought that paper, and I bought a number of books. And where I'm at now is I'm studying human behavior, because ultimately I am questioning whether liberty is actually possible in the form the libertarians want. Because I wonder if we are just evolved animals. Do we have this natural tendency to move towards collectivism? Do we have this natural tendency to organize ourselves into groups? Do we have this natural tendency, is the state ultimately something that will always exist? You're trying to fight against something that is within the nature of most humans. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a perfect place to start here, I think, because I believe everything points to that the state is inevitable as things are now. And I think that you had a question there in the beginning about how do we, you don't believe in a big red button and all this, how do we get to a libertarian society? And the answer to that is obviously through Bitcoin, because while I've been like a moral libertarian for quite some time now, I didn't see a way to get there before Bitcoin. Not really. I thought that, you can think these things, and you can have this moral perspective, and you can be a state minimalist or whatever you may call it, but you will always have to do that through using the existing system and through the lens of whatever age and nation you're living in. And but when Bitcoin came along, and when you really start to grasp the impact that this might very well have on society as a whole in the future, then all of a sudden these libertarian ideas don't seem as impossible any longer. I mean, coercion will be harder to execute for criminal organizations and the states. If if they're not the same thing, which some libertarians say they are, or even most. But I mean, it's more of a moral thing for me, really, than a political one. Like, how would you run a country if you got to, and minimalizing the state is a good start. But I think Bitcoin is more of a means to an end. It's a tool for liberating yourself, and you don't have to worry so much about the flock any longer.
All right. Well, there's a lot to pick apart here, and we'll work our way through it. And I've done this before. I've done it with Eric Voorhees. I've done it with Michael Goldstein. Like, I've tried to pick apart the arguments to test it as much as possible, test it for myself.
Yeah.
Ultimately. So there's a whole bunch of things to pick through. Let me just ask you to begin with, do you, like, and you don't have to answer, but do you just consider yourself a libertarian, or do you consider yourself an anarcho-capitalist? And by the way, what is the actual difference?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I don't know. I don't really like labels, because I think they get skewed over time. Like, being a liberal used to mean that you were sort of libertarian. Like now they call it classic liberalism, and it's a whole different ballpark than what being liberal means now. Because all of a sudden, being liberal means that you are pro state stuff, and you're pro all sort of equal outcome instead of equal opportunity thoughts, and like to not be a racist, you have to judge people, to group people by skin color or by gender or sexual orientation or whatever it may be. Like, if you don't do that, you're the racist or you're the sexist. And I think somewhere along the way the words change meaning. So that's why I'm reluctant to call myself anything. Right now, a libertarian or an anarcho-capitalist might be a good word to describe my morals, if you will. Maybe not my political views, but rather morals. I think you named a couple of books there that you're reading, and I think you should put Human Action on that list if you haven't already read it. By Ludwig.
Human Action.
Yeah, by Ludwig von Mises. It's a tough one, because I listened to it on audio, and it's like 38 hours long or something. But if you can manage that, that is like the magnum opus of libertarianism, and why this is the correct moral perspective to have, and how trying to meddle with the powers of a free market always leads to a worse result than just having people do things their own way and cooperate voluntarily rather than by coercion.
So this is where we come to that point where, like, I agree, theoretically I agree, right?
Yeah.
It's funny also, I'm buying books quicker than I can get through them. It's really tough. I'm buying them at just a ridiculous pace because there's so much I want to read.
Yeah.
So, I mean, recently, I bought the paper, The Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. I also bought Hierarchy in the Forest, The Evolution of Egalitarian Behavior. I also bought a copy of Plato's The Republic, and also this Skinner book about behaviorism. So, like, all these different books, because whilst I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, I agree with the goal of heading towards ultimate liberty. I fundamentally agree with that. And I agree that collectivism and coercion ultimately leads to bad outcomes. Yeah, I agree with that. I disagree with socialism. But like I said, I'm in this place where I'm not, and we'll get to the Bitcoin thing, but I think I'm in the place where I think, this, like you say, the state is inevitable because of human nature, because of the bad apples, the sociopaths and the narcissists who
not only that,
psychopaths.
Not only that, because this is where it gets really interesting, I think, because I think democracy in itself is flawed in a way that people, not only in the obvious ways, but in a way that most people don't think about. And there's a chapter in my new book, Independence Reimagined, about this. And it's called Why Collectivists Win. And the thing is that if you're a collectivist, or if being in the correct tribe, so to speak, or cheering for the correct football team or whatever, that if that means a lot to you, then you are more likely to form larger groups with other people than if you're an individualist and you don't really care that much about what other people think about your opinion. So if you have this groupthink mentality in your operating system, so to speak, you will naturally form larger groups than those who don't care if they're agreeable or not. And
this is like a gravity. So if you formed a group, people might want to join your group, and you're not going to say no because you believe in the collective group. So therefore, as more people join your group, they can help you towards your collective goals. Whereas if you're an there's no. I guess it's a bit like Bitcoin security. You know, that people say, when do we have enough security? You don't. It's almost like if you're a collectivist, it's like, well, how many people's enough? I guess there's never enough. Whereas if you're an individual, you're always individual. So it's directional, right?
Yeah. The thing is, the individual is the ultimate subgroup. You can always split a group apart, and there's always, what it all boils down to is that it's only an individual that can make a decision or that can have an opinion. It's always personal. But humans we're flock animals, and we tend to form groups and follow leaders because this has given us a genetic advantage in the past. Like this is what the beginning of the book is about. It's like you can categorize reality into objective reality, subjective reality, and intersubjective reality, which is everything that we collectively believe to be true. And that includes religion, states, nation states, and ultimately money as well, because we all need to have the same belief in order for it to work. And that's the only reason that it does work. And this ties into all the other stuff, because this has given us an enormous advantage compared to other species. If you watch a flock of chimpanzees, for instance, or some other primate, they never form groups larger than Dunbar's number, which is around 150 people, I believe. Mm-hmm. And because they can't communicate, they don't scale the same way that we do in our hive mind, if that makes any sense. Because we can like form a group that spans continents. Like we believe in the same God, or we believe in democracy, or we believe in money, or whatever it is. But it's still just an idea, all of it, and nothing more and nothing less. And while this might have helped us conquer the earth, it has at the same time made slaves of us all in a sense. Like we're not truly free thinkers because of it, because we take so much for granted. And I guess this ties in also to why I'm reluctant of saying that I'm a libertarian or an anarcho-capitalist, because I'm trying to get away from all the groupthink and like
that's a group.
yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Why I think there's so much hostility between Bitcoiners, because we're trying to like communicate with other free thinkers and other individualists and other people that come from the same, or more or less the same, urge to not be told what to think.
Yeah, but we'll come to that as well. I mean, I think some people actually they can't sometimes end up contradicting their own ideology, and some people are just arseholes, but we can come to that. I want to stay on that bit though, right? Okay, so because you will have studied this more than me. Okay, so you obviously know about Dunbar's number. Like groups of animals form together, and 150 is kind of like the maximum before it starts to kind of break down in certain ways. But
not all animals, primates.
Primates. But have you actually looked into any of the reasons why humans tend to form into groups and collect around like ideas of working together? I mean, my assumption being is that it was very different in if you go back hundreds of years where you'd have very little small communities or villages or, 10, 15, 100 people working together. And we're now at this weird place where we've got billions of people around the world trying to get everyone agree to live the same, which is dumb when you think about it. But do you understand? Have you looked into why humans are drawn into this kind of collectivism idea?
Yeah, well, as I said, I think it's a genetic thing. We've had a genetic advantage. The group that could kill the other group and kill all the animals around survived, and the other group that got eaten by all the tigers didn't. If that makes any sense. Like it's like
in our code.
If you look back at civilizations when they start to expand, it's the invention of ceremonial burial is almost always close to that point where they start growing. Start expanding their empires, and this is because it's not before you can fool an 18-year-old that going out with his weapon here and killing your neighbor is a good idea. You can't really do that before you invent the thought of an afterlife and like 17 virgins in heaven or whatever. Like,
well, okay, yeah, but I've heard that with the terrorists, but. Let's go back a step. So what? So prior to. So what did they used to do with the bodies? Just like let them lay there and rot. There was no burial.
I don't know. I guess they buried them, but they didn't have the ritual around it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know, and. I'm not an anthropologist, that's for sure.
so we're celebrating bravery. We become a hero.
Yeah, and we're being like leaders could use that in order to gain power, and like all hierarchical monkeys, like the alpha male of the flock gets the most action, right? the most female action, he attracts the most beautiful females in the flock and gets to bang most of them. So because he's the one on top, and this is it's an evolutionary thing, as I said. Like those traits live on because they survive, and it's as simple as that. And it might be harsh and depressing to think about, but. I really
actually, it's a really important point with regards to what's happening with all the unrest right now. I think it was Jordan Peterson I was listening to when he was talking about one of the problems in society is when you lose too many of the men, if you have an imbalance between men and women, because a man doesn't typically want to settle down.
Yeah.
And so if there's an imbalance, therefore he will kind of like spread his wings and and therefore that doesn't lead to like tighter family units. That actually leads to a more broken society.
Yeah, I think
we're not allowed to talk about this, I don't think, but we are.
Brett Weinstein was on about that on Joe.
Oh, was it Brett?
The other week.
That's where I heard it. Brett Weinstein on Rogan. That was it.
Yeah, and that was a brilliant interview until the solution that Brett had. Because Brett,
I've got questions.
Because Brett is not a Bitcoiner, so he doesn't see the underlying problem here. I mean, nowhere.
He wants to replace politics with. He wants to replace bad politics with more politics.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe that just won't work. Like changing constitutions and stuff. I mean, like I guess the Constitution of America was a step in the right direction, and it was the best there was for its time. However, that doesn't matter anymore, and it has no significance any longer. And what you get instead is this guy with a tucked-in pink shirt and an AR-15 rifle, scaring away the mobsters outside his door, outside his castle, which is huge, and like there's all sorts of things going on that are quite depressing, to be honest. But I think most people miss the root cause of the problem, which is the money, obviously.
Well, so listen, look, we've got Bitcoin, right? So we understand that. You see that as a solution to this problem. But let me ask you, so I'm a big fan of Tom Woods. I have probably made my way through about 500 of his episodes now.
Tom
But I wouldn't call... Yeah, Tom Woods. He's a libertarian. He's got this show. He had VJ Voyapati on recently talking about Bitcoin. But I wouldn't call Tom a Bitcoiner. Like, he has it covered on the show, but I wouldn't call him a Bitcoiner. I mean, he may own some, but he just doesn't talk about Bitcoin. He just talks about liberty and the path to liberty. And even if you're considered a minarchist, he will make the joke that, well, a minarchist is a 6 months away from being a libertarian or something. I can't remember the exact joke, but the point being is he believes ultimately in liberty, but I never hear him talk about the fact that the state is ultimately a inevitability, right? And this is when I therefore get into other conversations with. So if you're a libertarian and you believe in liberty, but you're not a Bitcoiner, I don't understand those who therefore also aren't involved in politics. I spoke to the Libertarian Party in the UK, and I asked them why they're involved in politics. And they said, because we want to get into power, and then our mandate is to reduce the state and ultimately get rid of it, which makes sense, right? I think but I don't think it can happen, but I think it makes sense. But for libertarians who aren't in Bitcoin, who also don't engage in the political process, I kind of feel like they have a personal belief about a situation that can never happen, like a society structure that is impossible to happen. Yeah. So I'm like, well, kind of, what is the point in that? Is that I mean, I get it. It's because it's like the principles you want to live by. I understand that, but wouldn't it be far better to look at someone like what Ron Paul achieved, right? Okay, ultimately he didn't get into power, but he did change a number of the conversations. He was there in the debate. He was there, debating the other politicians. And let's be honest, it'd be very difficult for anyone to say he wasn't the most rational person presenting the most rational arguments in those discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the conversation is the most important thing there, because we have two ways of solving problems, and that's violence and conversation. There's no middle ground. We can either fight each other or talk to each other. That's the only two options we have as humans. And using Bitcoin is talking to each other, because money is ultimately communication, right? I communicate that I appreciate what you do and all that. It's a language. You've heard all that stuff before, but I truly believe that a sound money is the ultimate tool for free speech there is, because speech isn't really free if you're constantly being thwarted by a system that is flawed in its core. The amounts of problem that this inflationary currency systems that we've been living under for the last 100 years have caused are they're too vast to even grasp. I mean, once you see that, it's hard to unsee it. And I think there are a lot of libertarians out there that see the problem with inflationary currencies that just haven't discovered Bitcoin yet. They maybe they've heard of it, but they haven't truly understood it, or maybe they don't believe that it will work in the long run, and they haven't looked into it enough. It's as simple as that. Because if you're a libertarian and you're not into Bitcoin, you're wasting your time, because this is it. This is the shot. This is the best shot. I would say it's the only shot that we have at this. A peaceful global revolution, for lack of a better word.
No. I mean, it's the perfect word. And listen, I agree with you.
It has a bad ring to it, though. I mean, Castro wanted to liberate people too.
Well, yes, of course. And there's been a lot of but it comes back to that point that I think it was my friend Tom was talking to me about China. He said China goes in these cycles. They have a revolution. The revolutionaries become in power, and the process starts again. Because absolute power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. That came the same cycle. But I do want to. Can I touch one other area with you as well? I just want to touch on socialism and the left. And I was definitely a socialist as a kid, right? As a kid growing up, I was like, well, sure, like there shouldn't be poor people, and we should all help each other, and we should have the NHS, and like I was without any doubt, I was a socialist. And we're talking like in my teens. It was only when I went into the workplace and grew up and my political views changed, and I've pretty much only ever voted. One time I didn't vote conservative. I just spoiled my paper. But every other time I voted conservative, apart from the last election. That's quite a funny story, actually, because I drew a picture of a duck, and my son went into his school had an election, and he said he didn't want to vote, so he drew a picture of an octopus. So we've got a family trend here. But anyway, so during the last election, the UK election, I didn't vote, but I got into a number of debates on Facebook. And I've got a lot of socialist friends, and I started talking about ideas I probably wouldn't have the confidence to talk about on Twitter, because I'm surrounded by so many smart and intellectual people. And that's not to say I don't on Facebook, but Facebook's an easier environment to test some of your own thoughts and ideas. And I wasn't going to vote, but I definitely was more fearful of the Labour Party getting to power, because they had a lot of just like really stupid socialist ideas. And Corbyn is an actual socialist, not just one of these social democrats, an actual socialist. He believes in the state owning the means of production. So I would put things out onto Facebook. And I remember one particular day, I was testing the idea amongst my friends of collectivism being evil, individualism being about liberty. If you believe in collectivism, you believe in coercion, and you're evil, blah, blah, blah. And just put it out there as a test. But kind of explaining it rationally, in probably very similar ways to that maybe you might explain it. So I had two people phone me because I thought I'd gone mad. One of them said, look, it's really upsetting me, the things you're putting out there. It's really getting to me. Because we had a bit of a discussion on Facebook. She was like, you know, what about you know, maternity pay and pregnant mothers?
Yeah.
What do you? And I'm like, well, if you choose to have a baby, you should pay the cost. If you can't afford it, save up. Why should I have to pay for it? And we went through the same on education, and we went through the same on a bunch of topics. So she phoned me up, and we had this really interesting. I remember I was driving, and she's like, "I can't believe what's happened to you over the last couple of years. You don't care about anyone anymore. You know, you've become really selfish, blah blah blah." And I was like, "No, I haven't.
No,
Actually, you know what I'm going to say, right? I care about free choice."
Yeah.
And anyway, by the end of the conversation, she was like, she said to me, yeah, it's really weird. Everything you're saying makes sense. I just can't vote for Conservative, so I'm going to vote for Labour.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting conversation.
This is what I'm talking about, why collectivists win. Because they're more concerned with the success of their tribe than what their tribe actually believes in. And the thing is with, like, if you have a more or less social democratic system, like you have a public sector and you have a private sector. And in the public sector, everything is slower and more bureaucratic, and you get less bang for the buck, basically. But when you're in a Keynesian economy, like we are now, the private sector is also distorted, because instead of making sound long-term investments, they are forced to spend to lend money and to take up big mortgages and like to spend rather than to on frivolous things rather than to make sound investments. They make short-term investments, so they all seem like Uncle Scrooges and greedy money grabbers, and it's easy to villainize the corporations and everything, and it's easy to villainize capitalists in a society that functions the way it does today, because of the Cantillon effect and everything, and that the larger your company is, the more influence it has on everything else, and it calls the shots, and it has the money to buy the lobbyists, to bribe the politicians, and it's all rotten to the core. So I can understand why people can choose to see like either the private or the public sector as the villain in this, and then they choose to be like social democratic or conservative, basically, and they don't see the underlying problem that goes even further than that, because the reason that the greediest and the most ruthless businessmen win is because they're allowed to, or even pushed to, make these short-term, unsound. There's so much malinvestment, and so much resources are wasted on. Like the fact that there is an attention economy is a testament to this. Like they grab your attention for a couple of seconds, and that there's money in that. And the way out of that is the only way out of that is to be under a sound money system where you have to back things up, and you have to have wealth in order to invest, and you have to save up and make long-term investments instead of this Keynesian bullshit of like spending all the time.
Next up, I talked to Knut more about collectivism versus individualism and libertarian ideas, but before that, I have a message from my amazing sponsors. So let's talk about Kraken and why they are the best place to buy Bitcoin. Firstly, their world-class security makes them the most trusted cryptocurrency exchange on the market. No hacker is going to get your Bitcoin. And with their 24/7, 365 customer support, they can help you with any issues you have, whoever you are and wherever you are. They have the most comprehensive suite of tools for buying Bitcoin. At Kraken.com, it could not be easier to sign up and start trading. They also have a beautiful mobile-first app so you can buy Bitcoin on the go. And with margin trading, futures, and their OTC desk, Kraken has every option covered for you. There is no better place to trade Bitcoin. Find out more at Kraken.com or download the app. It's available for the iPhone and Android. Just search for Kraken Pro, which is KrakenPro. Next up, we also have BlockFi, the future of Bitcoin and financial services. Now, with BlockFi, you can open up an interest account and earn money on your Bitcoin. I've been a customer. It's coming up for a year soon. I'm really happy with the interest I receive every month from BlockFi. Also, using your Bitcoin as collateral, you can take out a USD loan. And right now, they have a special offer for new customers. You can get a double interest bonus if you fund your BlockFi account by July the 18th. That means for the month of August, you'll be earning twice as much as normal. All you have to do is enter the promo code 2X when signing up. Just enter the number 2 followed by an X. That's promo code 2X. And if you're interested in checking out BlockFi, I recommend you do your own research. Then head over to blockfi.com, which is BLOCKFI.com.
All right, one more thing before Bitcoin. Have you heard of a book called Two Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer?
Nope.
So I've only just started it, and I'm working my way through the audio book yet, and I haven't got to what I wanted to get out of it yet. But the reason I bring it up is I put out like a question on Twitter once. So I was like, is it possible to have a society which is structured so you can have both collectivists and individualists side by side? So, for example, if you wanted to be part of a group and a state, but alongside that, an individual could operate and live completely separate from society. So, for example, you don't have access to voting. You can only buy services privately. You have to pay to use the roads. You have to pay to use every single thing which is a government service, but you get to opt out of the state. Now, ultimately, I think it's a flawed idea, because what will end up happening is all the wealthy people will opt out, and all those who can't afford won't. So probably the idea is fundamentally flawed, but I still kind of wondered if that is possible side by side. Is that something you've ever looked into?
Yeah. Yes and no is the answer to that question. Because because I believe that all democracies will ultimately lead to more and more interventionism and a bigger and bigger state.
Okay.
You have to have a revolution in order to decrease the size of the state and to actually lower taxes long term, and to have a society that's more focused on liberty. Yeah, there's just no way around that in the long term. So in that case, no. But on the other hand, I think that Bitcoin is this society that you're talking about. It provides us with a tool to do exactly that, especially since it's got number go up technology, which will make us, just as you say, only the wealthy will be able to float above the other system. And if Bitcoin continues to do the things it does already, that is where we're headed, and we will afford to do this. All Bitcoiners will at some point in the future. So that's my view on that. But the thing is, I don't know if this a society like that might happen with Bitcoin, if it will be very violent or not, because I think the transition, I'm unsure if the transition from the legacy system to a more sound money oriented system in this new nation without borders we're building, if that transition is a violent one or a peaceful one. I certainly hope it's a peaceful one, but like people with guns and like people will inevitably think that they have missed the train. They do already, and they don't see that this train is. You can't miss this train because it keeps on going. This train, and you can just hop on whenever, even when all the money in the world is in Bitcoin, we can still be more productive, and then Bitcoin will be worth more even then. So like there is no last station to hop on to the train of Bitcoin.
And people look. They talk about fucking lucky Bitcoin I got in 2010. That's why you care about it. Blah blah blah. Look, I've heard that, but fair enough. Maybe they got lucky. They heard about something, whatever. It never really bothers me. There's less of an excuse these days because everyone's heard of Bitcoin, right? Everyone's heard of it. They've had the choice to look into it, and maybe they have or they haven't. Let me ask you. Let me ask you another thing. Well, let me actually just make a point. You said, I'm not sure if it will be a bloody revolution. I think it will be a peaceful and bloody revolution at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I believe those who see it will want to transition peacefully. I mean, I want a peaceful transition. You want,
of course.
I believe in that. But I don't believe those who, there's a lot to get your head around here. Okay, with Bitcoin. It's a complete reconsideration of everything you know. Even going to so our pubs have just reopened here. Well, they're open on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to meet up with all my friends. We haven't seen each other for ages. 6 of us are going to get together, and I'm the weirdo, right? I'm the Bitcoin weirdo. I'm the one who and if I raise these issues and talk to them, we all know it. They're going to be like, "What are you on about, P? You fucking weirdo." And I'm going to be talking to them about Bitcoin, and there will be messages that will land. When I say to them, look, let's just look at the stock market now. There's very easy one to land right now. Look at the stock market priced in dollars, the US stock market, and look at it priced in gold. Let me explain to you why this is happening.
Yeah.
And that's going to make them go, oh, okay. So I'm going to say, look, this is the potential risk, the potential inflationary risk to your savings. And they're going to be, okay. And I can get that far. When I say to them, yeah, but what we really need to do is dismantle the state, move to voluntary interactions, get rid of hate speech, and each man for themselves kind of situation. They're going to be like, huh? So the reason I was going to say the reason I think it's a bloody revolution ultimately is because I don't think you can transition to this new version of society without an economic shock. And if you go back if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that the first need is food. That's the ultimate need, is that you have those physiological needs, and one of them is food. So it's that survival instinct kicks in, and we've seen that in the breakdown of the societies. Places like Venezuela is a perfect example. That first situation is the physiological needs. They need food, and if they need food, the situations can get violent. And yes, some people will be violent because they want more than food. They want a car, they just want money, but ultimately, when people are hungry, they will do crazy fucking things. And if we have a big economic shock, then I don't think you can have I don't think you can't have a bloody revolution.
Yeah, but that's not really Bitcoin's fault.
No, of course not.
Because the only reason that it's peaceful now is that we've all agreed to being fine with being robbed. We're doing this with a looming threat of imprisonment if we don't pay our taxes. That's the basic premise. We are coerced into doing it. Yeah. So we're already would you die free or live a slave or whatever the the catchphrases are? But you're a slave now to a certain extent, for sure, because the fruits of your labor are. You don't eat them. You give them away involuntarily. And I think most of us, especially Bitcoiners, there's all sorts of altruistic Bitcoiners that are perfectly fine with helping the poor and making the world a better place. I mean, just because you don't believe that the state should do it doesn't mean that you think that it shouldn't be done. That's a whole different thing. I just think we should try to, as peacefully as possible, get rid of the coercion part. And yeah,
well, I wouldn't say it's a peaceful revolution on Twitter.
No, but we're getting back to the why collectivism.
I know, I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
But,
you've been in a lot of Twitter storms lately. I've noticed.
I'm always in them. I can't figure out.
Bitcoiners, like I'll probably get some shit for this, but I believe I can talk to whoever I want, and I'm gonna stick to my opinions and discuss them with people. I mean, I believe that you can befriend someone you disagree with. It's not like you have to only interact with those people that you agree to 100%. Then you know better than the social justice warriors.
I know. And look, some of it's my fault because I just tell people to go fuck themselves, or I'm quite dogmatic in my views.
No comment.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck, really. But ultimately, like, I get what you're saying, and I talked to my friend Tom about this a lot. He's one of those weirdos, and if he hears this, he'll lose his shit with me. But he's one of those weirdos in the UK who votes for the Liberal Democrats. And like, I can't vote Conservative because they're stuck-up rich bastards and everyone hates them, and like I can't admit that because it's embarrassing. And then he's like, I can't vote for Labour because they're socialists, so I'm just going to go in the middle, which is the Liberal Democrats. But I talked to him about this stuff, and we work together regularly. He's a producer on Defiance, and he's like, yes, but we have agreed as a society to work together. We've agreed to come together and work as a society, and we need to help the most unfortunate. And if we don't help the most unfortunate, we've actually undone this civilized society that we've built, And
No.
I think there are certain things. I wouldn't agree. I would argue that there are certain things that have come good out of collectivism that I don't think you get under individualism. For example, for example, I don't know if without collectivism, I don't know if you have wheelchair ramps in every public building or every building in the country, right? Now, for somebody who's in a wheelchair, that's amazing for them. They know they can go anywhere in the UK and their wheelchair is not an impediment to them getting in the building and getting around the building. And that is a law. If you don't have that as a collective rule, that's not going to happen. Not everyone's going to do that.
Yeah, but what do you mean by building then? Is that
a structure, a shop?
Yeah, but is that a so-called public building, or
just saying any business, swimming pool, cinema, even private. And look, I know what defense you're going to put to me. What I'm saying is for that individual in the wheelchair, it's good for them.
Yeah, but okay, let me answer that with an analogy. Like if you're in a brick and mortar store, whatever, you're trying to buy something that they don't have. What is the most common response you get from the employee at the store? It's like, no, we have
go online.
Go online or try this other store across the street or whatever.
What about the cinema?
We don't play that movie. Go to this theater over here; they have it. And
what I'm saying is, I understand what you're saying.
No. Let me get to the point, because this is important. Businesses do that because they have to, because their end goal is the satisfaction of the customer. So every entrepreneur is a slave to his customers' wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be to a certain extent, of course, and maybe they wouldn't voluntarily put wheelchair ramps on every building, but like putting them on every building is not optimizing the resources, because wheelchaired people won't go to the gym, for instance, to the same extent as someone with legs, like to a spinning class, let's say. So
I understand that.
Maybe the ramp is unnecessary there, and those resources were wasted, and people just lost their money building the thing.
I understand your defense.
Yeah.
No, I understand your defense. But what I'm saying is,
it's not a defense.
Well, it's the argument against it. What I'm saying is, for the individual in a wheelchair, it is great for them, for anybody for the population of people in wheelchairs, for them in the UK to know they can go to any building, which is a business or a public, and know they have that, for them, that is a good thing, right?
Yeah, but you can easily, like, if you're a customer and you see a store, if you're in another country and you see a store that does not have a ramp for handicapped people, you can choose not to interact with them and to buy stuff there. Like,
what if you're in a small town with only one cinema? All your friends get to go and watch the film, and it's difficult for you. Well, I'm not arguing with the theory.
I'm sure
of what you're saying.
I'm sure that cinema would want that extra customer as well, and sooner or later they could pay for the ramp for the handicap. It's sort of a far-fetched example, the handicap ramp.
But it is an example for that person. You know, it is an example in that situation that I just think that has been a benefit for those. Let me think of another one. What about? Yeah, because I think that certain aspects of policing and certain departments in the police, I don't know if you would get. I just don't know. Again, I understand there will be a defense argument. Well, we'll have private police forces, and if there's a demand from that, then we'll get it. But I'm just not sure you will have it. I'm not sure if you will have a coordinated, for example, national. Like I can't remember what the UK one is. It's like it's the ones that deal with like the worst criminals.
Yeah. But neither am I. I'm not sure either. I'm not sure of the outcome, and I'm not sure. And this is, I think this is in the preface to my book, or the foreword or whatever. Like if we can't really know what would have happened if we would have chosen the other alternative at any point in time in history. Mm-hmm. So we're all chained to the unforgiving arrow time, right? And so I don't know if we would have a better system if we didn't have a public sector. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that from a moral perspective, the individual is the ultimate minority, and that's the individual's rights is the most important thing, because that's where every group is formed of individuals, and like that's what you should focus your attention on, the rights of the individual, and not the entitlements of the individual, because I don't believe you're entitled to anything, but the rights to pursue your own goals and stuff like that, and which you're born with these rights, and the government's narrative is like they give you a right to do this and they give you a right to do that, but a government can never give anything. They can just take stuff away. I mean, of course, they can give out stolen money and give stuff back. So in a sense they can, but when it comes to rights, like I find the word free trade agreement is an oxymoron, and like I used to be pro the EU, but I'm slowly but surely becoming an anti-EU person.
What? Hold on. Why we hold on? Let me guess. You were pro the EU because it broke down borders.
Yeah, exactly. But then I hadn't figured out that borders were just there in the first place because someone put them there. And that's the thing. Free trade agreement is an oxymoron in my from my perspective, because like the thing when the UK, when Brexit happened, you have a lot of problems with that now, because you can't interact the way you did with the rest of Europe. But that's not really neither the UK's or that's the fault of the existence of the nation of the nation states. I mean, they are the ones that put the borders there in the first place, and that they told you that you couldn't cross this border and interact with those people over there. So like it all boils down to it's all one of our forefathers being really fucking mean to another one of our forefathers and taking their stuff.
Yeah.
So
are you is your location private, or can you tell me where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Western Sweden. Is that?
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so let's say. Okay,
let's try some OPSEC for once.
No. Let's just say that Sweden adopts Bitcoin, right? And the state ends up breaking down, and you end up becoming a Bitcoin-based society.
Here's a whole different rabbit hole, because I don't think the state can adopt Bitcoin. That's a different.
No. I mean, sorry. It's the state breaks down after the people adopt Bitcoin, right? So
Right.
you end up, the state's gone. You're in this hyper-Bitcoinization, kind of free society in Sweden. What happens when those Danish fuckers start coming running over the bridge with their axes and shit, and they're like, right, now's our chance. We can get Sweden. What happens then? You've disbanded your police. You've disbanded your military.
First of all, the Danes will adopt Bitcoin way before we will, because we're
I don't think so.
more collectivist than they are.
I don't know, man. Your response to the coronavirus. Yeah, I need to ask you about that anyway.
But I'm very happy with how the state responded to that, and I usually detest the Social Democrats here, but I actually do believe that the way they did it, I don't really mind the high death rates, because I think an enforced police state is worse. And this is the thing I wanted to talk to you about, because
okay.
You wrote a tweet saying like a 30-day lockdown globally, that would be the best solution to this.
That's Brett Weinstein's fault again.
Yeah, it is, right? I bet you tweeted it while watching that.
Well, no, actually, in fairness, if you see, because I actually retweeted an old tweet of mine, I said this right at the very start.
All right.
I said at the very start, because it says, I still think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
So let me frame it. Let me just frame it for you.
Okay.
It's not.
Respond. Yeah.
And I really did wrestle with this, because I knew when I was thinking this, it's like, but Pete, you'll become a libertarian. You'll understand about liberty, and then if this is a forced lockdown, then this is encouragement. And look, I get that, and I totally get that. But at the same time, I was about to do an interview with Scott Horton. And I read some articles on the Libertarian Institute about the big red button being dangerous. And then these like in the pursuit of liberty, there's these certain scenarios. I think Nassim Taleb talked about them recently, tail issues or whatever he calls them. But like pandemics, defense, there are certain things that perhaps even in a libertarian society want. So I wrestled with it. But the ultimate framing for me is, if you're going to do a lockdown, do it properly. And there's loads of arguments against it and why it could and couldn't work. But if you're going to do it, just do it properly and kill it. Kill the virus dead.
Yeah, and from a medical perspective, you're right. You're probably very right, and that would have killed the virus. But this is the scary part, because a prerequisite for doing that is totalitarianism, and all your freedoms taken away. If all your freedoms can be taken away in a manner like that, that's not a society I ever want to set my foot in.
Well, we're already in it.
Yeah, but they couldn't. Over here, they couldn't. They were too cowardly over here, whatever, too slow, or whatever you may call it. But they couldn't really enforce it. And I think in Sweden, the police force is just not strong enough or big enough for them to enforce a thing like that. And there's almost no military. So even if they would have tried, people would have, we're a very obedient bunch over here. Most Swedes are very obedient. And so we do whatever they tell us to do. And yeah, I realize now that I'm talking from a perspective of a country that has one of the highest death rates from this ever. But the thing is,
but you got your freedom.
Yeah, in a sense there. But the thing is, the part that scares me is that people seem to think that the result is more important than the morals that. The ends ratify the means part of this, because I think the ends never ratify the means in that sense. Make any sense? Because
no, totally. I get that. I totally get that. So let me ask you a different scenario.
Yeah.
So I released a show today on my Defiance podcast called How to End Humanity. I did an interview with this guy, Rob Reed, and there was a virus H5N1 that was very, very like really, really contagious and really lethal. No, it was really lethal, but hardly contagious.
Yeah.
And in a lab, they fucked around with it so it could be really contagious. They didn't want to test these things right. So imagine, I think we can agree that coronavirus is highly contagious. It's spread around the globe. at a rate that none of us kind of expected. And we've got 10 million infected, but probably it could be 100 million. We don't really know, right?
No.
Now, let's just say it was highly, like at a high death rate, like Ebola levels of death.
Yeah.
Killing 50, 60% of people have got it. And initially we see it in another country and we have the risk of it breaking into our country. And we see another country and everyone is just fucking dying. When your government turns around and say, we are doing a lockdown now and it's a strict one and these are the rules, are you of the exact same feeling? No, we should all go out and do it exactly as we please. Or not even in that scenario, like, you know what, hold on. Yeah, this is kind of fucked up. We should do something about this.
Yeah, this... I think if we saw people dying en masse all over the place, we would do a lockdown voluntarily.
Perhaps, but you still might get the idiots who are like, no, I don't care. I want to do what I want.
Yeah. But then the idiots would die, and it's Darwinism. It's harsh, and I might sound inhumane now, but
no, true. Like, look, I've wrestled with these. I really have wrestled with these.
Let me give you a counter scenario. Say we have another a spread of like Ebola goes worldwide. Or whatever, highly contagious, high death rate, and the nation that handles this perfectly is China, and they do a total lockdown and they lock people into their buildings and like they cut off everything for 30 days and they kill it. Then that will be the model society for all other societies to look up to after the virus has died out. So everyone would like to will copy their model, and they will, and that will China will become everywhere. And I think there's a high risk that this is already happening. Like all these like contagion, the apps that the tracking devices that spy on you and like really scary stuff that they want to keep the virus contained. So you should have your GPS on at all times, and you should be if you have the virus, where have you been? Who have you talked to? Where have you interacted? It's all part of this really dystopian Orwellian nightmare that's a big risk right now. And I think no virus in the world is as scary as that. Like. Just watch a movie like Brazil or whatever, and any dystopian movie will tell you where that leads. And Orwell's 1984 pops into mind, of course. And like, yeah, I'm rambling on here.
but you're right. It's really frustrating because every time I have like I think I've got you here.
No,
you've got a solid answer.
That scares me more than viruses.
Yeah, no, but they are solid arguments. Okay, so tell me, in terms of Bitcoin, how does this solve this? And do you believe? Have you got any blind spots with this?
Blind spots with Bitcoin,
and you would be like, well, I don't have any blind spots because there are blind spots, so I can't see it. But do you know what I mean? Are there the things where you're like, I'm not sure it can happen because of A, B, and C, but talk me through first how you think this is going to play out.
What, Hyperbitcoinization or totalitarianism or what?
No, how we move to a Bitcoin society, how this actually happens. You say, because you're like, this is our one chance, right? And you're probably right. If Bitcoin doesn't work, then we're screwed.
I think we're building a nation on top of every other nation. Like we're building a decentralized system. Nation has a bad ring to it, but we're building something, a community. Let's to use a more neutral word. That in due time will like when the price of Bitcoin goes up, all Bitcoiners will be more wealthy, and therefore, as a whole, we will be more powerful and more influential everywhere.
Okay.
So this, I believe there's a great chance that this will be peaceful and that it will happen in a good way. Also, I mean, both scenarios are possible, and it's predicting the future is a dangerous game. But I don't really know how it will play out, and I don't know when. This is the most tricky question, because like hyperbitcoinization could happen in a matter of months or in 300 years. I don't really know, and no one does. But I think sooner or later it will be inevitable. If this experiment that Bitcoin still is, it continues to work, and the way it does. That's the basic premise of my books. Like they are from the perspective of, if this continues to do what it already does, what does that lead to?
But how does having Bitcoin stop us going back to our old ways of collectivism? Look, I understand that we're sovereign, and if we've got very good privacy, I imagine in the future we'll have better tools for privacy, and we can stop the state stealing our Bitcoin. But just for example, what's to stop a group of people with Bitcoin thinking, we still need a state. Let's all contribute a little bit of Bitcoin towards the state. We can tax people, and what stops that happening? You've still got men with guns.
Yeah, but you have to pay them, right? You have to pay the men with guns. And of course, and the thing with Bitcoin is, like, a whole population could have an unknown amount of Bitcoin in their heads at all time. The only thing you need to learn how to do is how to memorize 24 words. Mm-hmm. And then if you memorize a seed phrase, you can have that money without anyone ever knowing that you have it. I mean,
yeah, but come on, no one's gonna. Well, very few people are going to take that risk. Most people are going to have a better way than just memory. I understand the theory.
Yeah, this is for the sake of argument here. How this differs from every type of money that preceded it, because like information used to be indirectly valuable, but now it's very directly valuable. A Bitcoin, the information that represents your Bitcoin is the very thing that is valuable. And that turns everything on its head about ownership, because like a state owning money involves a lot of cooperation with like who actually decides what to spend and when and where. And with Bitcoin, like I've been talking about this before, but how does that actually work for a nation? Say, I mean, someone has to hold the keys, and people say like, well, 10 million key multisig, and like 60% of the keys unlocks the Bitcoin or something like that. It could build a society like that, but I have a hard time seeing how that would play out. And like, for instance, in Venezuela, you've seen this, that they accept Bitcoin via BTC Pay server for passports for Venezuelans. Right? You saw that, right? And yeah. I wonder who holds the keys to those Bitcoin. It's either someone in Venezuela with a gun at his head, or it's Maduro himself, if he's mentally capable of handling Bitcoin. You don't really know these things, and I mean, it's so much harder for anyone to confiscate Bitcoins than it is to confiscate, for, let's say, gold. Like for instance, in the UK now, you have all the Venezuelan gold, or some of the Venezuelan gold is in your vaults. And I just read a headline that the British Central Bank are refusing to give it back to Maduro because they don't see Maduro as the legit president of Venezuela.
No, they think it's Guaido.
Yeah. So they actually own the gold, right? Mm-hmm. The person who made that decision, in reality, he's the one who owns the gold. But with Bitcoin, it's a whole different ballpark, because the one who holds the keys is the owner of the Bitcoin, regardless of guns. And if you shoot that person, the Bitcoin would disappear. So, and that's not the case with gold. So there are so many rabbit holes to fall into here when you realize that information is actually literally worth something, rather than just metaphorically worth something.
Man, you put up a good argument in defense for everything, dude.
Thank you. I do my best.
All right. Well, listen. Look, you should tell people about the your. Did you write 2 books?
Yeah. I wrote Sovereignty Through Mathematics,
Okay.
And I've been doing this all by myself. It's just a hobby of mine, and
Just a hobby.
Yeah, and I've always been a creative person. I have a bit of ADD, so I started writing a book. Actually, I first started writing articles. I compiled them into a book, but then I got my name associated to a bunch of articles that I read. They were sort of bad. So I said, why don't I write a proper book about Bitcoin? And so I did, and I stopped when I got bored with it. I had a New Year's resolution that I would write a page a day for a whole year. And I wrote, and I kept that promise for 100 days, and then I got bored with it. And the book is finished now. It's a 100-page book. Here it is. So I went to Riga with 50 of those. You got one.
I did.
I gave it away to a bunch of people there. Traded one with Jimmy Song for the little Bitcoin book and all that, and mingled around with people. So good to see people in meet space. And that was like my introduction as a Bitcoin author to the world. And after that, they've been catching on, and I'm just enjoying the ride. So I wrote another book during my vacation in Spain this Christmas. And the first book is called Sovereignty Through Mathematics, and the second one is Bitcoin Independence Reimagined.
Man, I will make time to read them, I promise you.
They're on Audible, if that's
well,
easy.
Or listen, it's just this big pile of books. I promise you, I will get through it. Well, listen, look, I will add links to this in the show notes. I'll tell everyone to buy your books and support what you're doing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on. It's like these are really interesting subjects for me to talk about. I'm working my way through it, like in my head. I'm trying every time to break them so I can like reinforce my own thinking. Because I think it's a journey, right? Nobody wakes up a Bitcoin maximalist, and nobody wakes up a libertarian. Well, I guess you're born one, but nobody really does. You kind of go on a journey of discovering, and in doing that, it's hard, but it's really good having the support of other people and trying to earn these kind of complex societal and political and economic ideas. So I always appreciate someone like you coming on and letting me throw questions at you. I think it was fantastic. So Knut, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, and before we close out, just once again, like human action is a good place to start if you want to know a bit about the history of libertarian thought process and everything. And like this is not, like I said, I'm not sure that I'm right, not at all. From an outcome perspective, but it's about basic morals. It's about morality.
Yeah.
Should or should you not force people into behaviors, into different behaviors? That's the basic premise.
No, I agree with you. I've got the Amazon page open now. Here it is. I think I might go for the Audible book, though, as you said, and find a time when I've got 30 hours, probably when I'm out running or on my bike. But no, I will give it a go. And if I've got any questions, I'll come back to you. Appreciate your time, man. And hopefully we'll see each other at some event soon when the planes are flying.
Yeah, I'm thinking of taking the ferry to Riga this year.
Nice.
You can social distance,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, I just fingers crossed it all happens, dude. Really do.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, listen, Liverpool are about to play Man City. I'm going to go and watch us get our Gardevoir now. I appreciate your time, dude. And look, you take care, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, stay safe and take care. See you on Twitter.
Okay, what do you think of that one? Do you enjoy having Knut on the show? Do you enjoy these dives into libertarianism and challenging some of the ideas? I mean, I found it really helpful. And as I said over and over, I really like the ideals of libertarianism. You can't really argue against more freedom and less state intervention. But the part I find hard is how a society like this would operate. What are the consequences? What are the implications? Anyway, this is a rabbit hole I will definitely continue to go down. And Knut gave me a pretty good reading list that I will get on with. So anyway, thanks him for coming on the show. If you want to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out. It's hello@whatbitcoindid.com. Also, check out the show notes. Make sure you go and check out his books. And any questions, as ever, you can reach out to me. It is hello@whatbitcoindid.com.